My name is Sandra, and I am a 50-year-old who works part-time. My husband and I are parents to 3 teenage boys, one a senior and the other a sophomore in high school. Our elder son is currently preparing for his college entrance exams with the dream of becoming a lawyer, a passion he's nurtured since he was very young. This aspiration likely comes from admiring my brother Timothy, a successful lawyer who established his own law firm a few years back. Timothy's dedication to his profession and his ability to inspire others, especially my son, has been a guiding light in our family. Despite being excellent in his studies from a young age, my son's ambition to pursue law intensified because of the encouragement and example set by Timothy. Whenever they meet, my son expresses his determination to become a lawyer, much to Timothy's delight and supportive chuckles. Timothy, who is childless and married to a woman 8 years his junior, enjoys spoiling my sons whenever he visits, creating a warm and encouraging environment for them to grow up in. Despite Timothy's wife being somewhat of an enigma to us, she's known for her eccentric personality and rarely visits our home. We've had minimal interaction with her. Timothy and I, having lost our parents early in life, have always had a close bond. He played a parental role in my life, especially during significant events like my wedding. My husband and I were initially relieved to hear of Timothy's engagement, hoping it would bring him happiness. However, our first meeting with his fiancée left us puzzled due to her seemingly unhappy demeanor, contrary to our expectations of seeing a joyous bride-to-be. On another note, my husband possesses a substantial fortune, estimated at $50 million, including our home, which will be inherited by me in the absence of any children from our marriage. This fact seems to have caused some tension, or at least a noticeable change in how my sister-in-law interacts with us, although she has always been somewhat distant and difficult to communicate with. This complex web of family relationships, aspirations, and the dynamics of inheritance paints a picture of our lives, filled with both ambition and the peculiar challenges that come with interpersonal relationships within a family. In the presence of my brother and his fiancée, I commented on how wonderful they seemed together, a gesture of goodwill and support on what was a significant moment for them. However, once back in the privacy of my home with my husband, I felt free to express the doubts that lingered in my mind. I couldn't help but wonder why my brother's fiancée appeared so markedly unhappy, especially now that their marriage was official. My husband shared my concerns, echoing my sentiments with a note of worry. He remarked on her lack of joyfulness, a quality one might expect in someone just married. My brother, a successful lawyer with his own firm, had recently purchased a house, prompting a visit from our family to celebrate the new milestone. The house was as impressive as I had anticipated, a testament to my brother's achievements. Yet during our visit, the absence of my sister-in-law was palpable. My husband, ever the joker, teased my brother about his wife's absence, asking if she had left him already. The joke, intended to be lighthearted, fell flat as we observed my brother's somber reaction. He explained that his wife often returned to her parents' home for various reasons, and on this occasion, it was to celebrate her mother's birthday. The mood shifted unexpectedly when my brother, with a seriousness that was uncharacteristic, inquired if we would consider allowing him to adopt one of our children should he and his wife be unable to have their own. The question was so sudden and so grave that I found myself speechless, unable to process the request. My husband, perhaps in an attempt to diffuse the tension, responded with laughter, suggesting that such decisions could be discussed in the future. His casual dismissal did not ease my concerns. Instead, I found myself preoccupied with thoughts of what this meant for my brother's marriage and the well-being of his relationship with his wife. Over the years, the absence of my sister-in-law from family gatherings became a norm, to the extent that her existence seemed almost an afterthought. Conversations about her or inquiries into her well-being were carefully avoided, creating an unspoken agreement not to broach what was clearly a sensitive subject. This delicate balance was maintained until a recent celebration in honor of my eldest son's acceptance into his dream law school, during which my brother revisited the subject of adoption. This reiteration brought back all the complexities and unspoken worries that had been simmering beneath the surface of our family's interactions. The juxtaposition of my family's life, marked by milestones and celebrations, against the backdrop of my brother's unspoken struggles, painted a complex picture of familial bonds and the silent worries that often go unaddressed. Despite the joy of my son's achievement, my brother's situation reminded me of the nuanced and sometimes hidden challenges that family members face, leaving me to ponder the best way to support those we love while respecting the boundaries they set. My brother revisited a significant request with us, inquiring if we would consider allowing him to adopt one of our children. This conversation emerged from a place of need and hope, as he and his wife were unable to conceive. The question wasn't new to us. He had broached the subject previously shortly after his marriage, but the context had changed, and the urgency in his tone was palpable this time. Despite the gravity of the situation, my husband responded with a light-hearted suggestion, proposing our eldest son, who shared my brother's ambition in law, as a potential candidate. His casual demeanor belied the complexity and the enormity of the decision at hand, a decision that would undeniably alter the course of our sons' lives. Given that the prospective adoptive parent would be their uncle, the familial bond reassured me somewhat about their emotional well-being. However, my apprehensions concerning my sister-in-law's treatment towards my children, who would not be her biological offspring, lingered. Seeking clarity and assurance, I questioned my brother about his wife's stance on the adoption. His response, accompanied by a strained smile, was meant to allay my fears. He confirmed that the matter had been discussed and agreed upon between them, offering a semblance of relief, yet the decision was too significant to be made hastily. I resolved to engage my sons in this conversation, considering they were of high school age and capable of understanding the implications of such a life-altering choice. The matter was left to be deliberated further, with no immediate conclusions drawn. However, the situation took an unexpected turn a few days later when I received a distressing call from my brother's law firm, informing me of his sudden collapse due to a stroke. Upon arriving at the hospital, I was greeted by his colleagues, whose faces were etched with concern. They informed me that they had been unable to contact my sister-in-law. Attempts to reach her through the landline were futile, and without her mobile number, I felt at a loss. It wasn't until my husband and younger son joined me that we discovered a smartphone among my brother's personal effects, which provided us with the means to contact her. The call was initially met with hostility, as she mistook me for someone else and threatened legal action. It was only when I identified myself and explained the circumstances of my brother's hospitalization that her demeanor shifted from aggressive to apologetic. Yet her reaction to the news of my brother's condition struck me as peculiarly upbeat, a reaction that seemed incongruous with the gravity of the situation. This interaction added another layer of complexity to my already conflicted feelings about the proposed adoption and the dynamics within my brother's family. The incident underscored the delicate nature of family relationships and the unforeseen challenges that often accompany them, leaving me to navigate these turbulent waters with great care and consideration for all involved. When I reached out to my sister-in-law to inform her about my brother's hospitalization, her response was chillingly indifferent. She claimed she was too busy to visit the hospital and requested to be updated on any developments, abruptly ending the call. This reaction left me perplexed and slightly dismayed, questioning what could possibly be more pressing than her husband's critical health situation. It became evident that we couldn't count on her support, compelling us to take matters into our own hands regarding my brother's care. In the days following, my family and I rallied to provide the support my brother needed. My eldest son, having recently completed his university entrance exams and enjoying a period of relaxation, took it upon himself to visit my brother daily, acting as our family's representative. Despite our hopes and prayers, my brother remained in a critical, unconscious state with no signs of improvement. Throughout this entire ordeal, my sister-in-law remained conspicuously absent. She neither visited nor inquired about his condition. Approximately a week after my brother was admitted to the hospital, I initiated another call to my sister-in-law, hoping for a change in her attitude. However, her response was as shocking as it was heartless. She answered the phone with a tone of gleeful anticipation, asking, "What's the matter? Did he die?" Her blatant insensitivity and lack of empathy were staggering. When I questioned her absence at the hospital, she retorted dismissively, claiming her presence would make no difference to my brother's condition. Her indifference infuriated me to such an extent that I ended the call, feeling both enraged and helpless. This series of interactions led me to reflect on my brother's earlier proposal to adopt one of my sons. It dawned on me that perhaps his suggestion was rooted in a deep-seated concern for his legacy and a recognition of the strained dynamics within his own marriage. Their union, brokered by a marriage counseling agency, now appeared to me in a different light. I speculated whether my sister-in-law's motivations for marrying my brother were influenced more by his profession and financial stability than by love or companionship. This realization only added to my growing resentment towards her. Discussing these developments with my husband, he presented a bleak but realistic perspective. Should anything happen to my brother, his wife would stand to inherit everything, given the absence of any children. This stark reality brought new weight to my brother's interest in adoption, suggesting it might have been a contemplative step towards securing his legacy and ensuring his assets remained within the family. When I broached the subject of adoption with my sons, their reactions were unexpectedly varied. My younger son, devoid of any immediate aspirations or goals, surprisingly expressed willingness to be adopted, perceiving it as an opportunity for an easier life under the care of my brother. This stood in stark contrast to my older son, whom I had assumed would be more inclined towards the idea, especially considering his admiration for my brother. This divergence in their responses left me contemplating the complexities of family dynamics, the impact of legacy, and the unforeseen consequences of our choices on the bonds that hold us together. My oldest son didn't want to be adopted because he felt it was his duty to take care of us, his parents. I was happy to hear this, but also felt that he would have been the perfect choice for adoption by my brother, who was a lawyer and needed someone to continue his legacy. Unfortunately, I couldn't go through with the adoption since my brother was unconscious, and I didn't want his wealth, but definitely didn't want his property going to my sister-in-law, who seemed to be waiting for him to pass away. Sadly, my brother never got better and passed away a few days later. I had to call my sister-in-law to discuss the funeral arrangements. Her response was cold. She said she didn't want to be involved in any way and hung up quickly. My husband and I, with help from the law firm staff, organized the funeral. Despite the firm's uncertain future, we learned my brother had made arrangements for its continued operation. The funeral showed how respected my brother was, with many people from various fields attending and sending flowers. This made us realize once again how great he was. My younger son felt regret for not being adopted, especially seeing the influential people who came to pay their respects. He didn't realize how amazing his uncle was. I was a pallbearer at the funeral, but nobody asked why my sister-in-law wasn't there, and her absence went unmentioned. It seemed like we were the only ones who knew about their marriage. They had skipped a wedding ceremony and went straight to their honeymoon, which might be why even some relatives were unaware. After the funeral, we invited everyone to my brother's house to thank them and share a meal. Just as we were reflecting on our loss, my sister-in-law showed up in a bright pink coat, drawing attention. It was a difficult time, filled with mixed emotions, from pride in my brother's accomplishments to sadness over his passing and frustration with the unresolved issues he left behind. When my sister-in-law arrived at the end of the funeral, she announced loudly that she would inherit my brother's $50 million estate and house, as they had no children. Her declaration was met with laughter from my brother's coworkers, confusing everyone. She demanded to know why they were laughing, calling them rude. One lawyer then revealed that she and my brother were officially divorced, and that the divorce settlement had been finalized the day before he fell ill. This news shocked everyone, especially when it became clear she was expecting to inherit despite the divorce. As the discussion unfolded, it was revealed that she was supposed to pay alimony because her affair had caused the divorce. She protested, claiming she had no one to pay alimony to, but the lawyers corrected her, stating that as my brother's sole inheritor, I would be the one to receive it. It was a moment of realization for me and her. The rules of inheritance were not in her favor. She tried to argue that she should still get half of the estate now that the divorce was settled. However, a lawyer pointed out that my brother had already compensated her during the divorce, and that the house, purchased before their marriage, was not subject to division. Despite her attempts to assert herself, mentioning a life insurance policy she thought she was still the beneficiary of, a lawyer quickly noted that my brother, being cautious, likely changed the beneficiary after the divorce. Her attempt to secure a position of advantage amidst a crowd that was clearly not on her side was bold, yet ultimately futile, as legal facts and my brother's foresight protected his assets from being claimed under false pretenses. When I stumbled upon my brother's life insurance policy among his important documents, a moment of tension arose as my sister-in-law snatched it from my hands to eagerly verify the beneficiary's name. Her anticipation quickly dissolved into disappointment when it became clear that the policy named me, not her, as the beneficiary. In a burst of frustration, she vented her true feelings, lamenting her marriage to my brother under the mistaken belief of his wealth, and now facing the reality of receiving minimal financial benefits and the obligation of paying alimony. It was a confession of regret and disillusionment. In response, one of my brother's lawyers, present during this exchange, remarked that my brother had expressed similar sentiments about his decision to follow a marriage counselor's advice, viewing it as a grave error. This was a perspective my brother had never shared with me directly, but had openly discussed with his colleagues, revealing a side of his thoughts and feelings I had not been privy to. Following the revelation of her unsuccessful attempt to secure a fortune through the marriage, my sister-in-law found herself in a precarious financial situation. Obliged to fulfill the alimony payments in installments without a steady income, she desperately sought employment. However, her lack of work experience and commitment quickly led her to abandon the job market. Reverting to her previous strategy, she registered again with a marriage counseling agency, aiming to entrap another wealthy individual. Unfortunately for her, her scheme was short-lived. The man she targeted detected her deceit and took legal action, leading to her arrest for attempting marriage fraud. This incident came to light when I inquired about the alimony payments that had never commenced. The lawyer from my brother's firm informed me of her arrest and the unlikely prospect of recovering any alimony in the foreseeable future. While the financial aspect of the alimony was of little concern to me, the principle of the matter was paramount. I harbored no interest in the money itself, but rather in seeing justice served for her exploitation of my brother's intentions and legacy. I wished for a thorough investigation into her actions, hoping that any other fraudulent activities would be uncovered and adequately addressed in court. In the wake of these events, my family and I transitioned into a new phase of our lives, moving into the spacious house my brother had left behind. This significant inheritance transformed our living situation, moving us from an apartment to a residence that offered more than just physical space. It represented a legacy and a foundation for the future. My eldest son, inspired by the legal wranglings he witnessed and motivated by a desire to uphold his uncle's legacy, dedicated himself to his law studies with renewed vigor and aspiration. He saw in his uncle's colleagues a model for the type of lawyer he aspired to become, one committed to justice and integrity. However, amidst the family's collective uplift from the inheritance, my younger son harbored feelings of disappointment, half-jokingly expressing a wish that he had been the one adopted by our uncle, thereby positioning himself as the direct inheritor of the estate. His comment, tinged with jest, nonetheless revealed an undercurrent of regret and what-if scenarios that lingered in his mind, a reflection of the complex emotions and dynamics that the legacy and its aftermath had stirred within our family.